Chapter 3, verse 5 continued, "The objection is this, if then it be so that the righteousness of God, that righteousness which is revealed in the gospel," chapter 1, verse 17, "by the imputation of which men are justified, if that righteousness which God has provided is more illustriously manifested by our sin, showing how suitable and efficacious it is to us as sinners, shall it not be said that God is unjust in punishing the sin that has this effect? What shall we say? Or what answer can be made to such an objection? Is God, or rather is not God, unjust, who in this case taketh vengeance?" This is a sort of insult against the doctrine of the gospel, as if the objection was so strong and well-founded that no reply could be made to it. I speak as a man, that is to say, in the way that the impiety of men and their want of reverence for God leads them to speak. The above was, in effect, a manner of reasoning common among the Jews and other enemies of the gospel. It is indeed such language as is often heard, that if such doctrines as those of election and special grace be true, men are not to be blamed who reject the gospel. Verse 6, "God forbid, for then how shall God judge the world?" Far be it. Paul thus at once rejects such a consequence and so perverse a manner of reasoning as altogether inadmissible, and proceeds to answer it by showing to what it would lead if admitted. For then how shall God judge the world? If the objection were well-founded, it would entirely divest God of the character of judge of the world. The reason of this is manifest, for there is no sin that any man can commit which does not exalt some perfection of God in the way of contrast. If then it be concluded that because unrighteousness in man illustrates the righteousness of God, God is unrighteous when he taketh vengeance, it must be further said that there is no sin that God can justly punish, whence it follows that God can no longer be judge of the world. But this would subvert all order and all religion. The objection, then, is such that were it admitted, all the religion in the world would at once be annihilated. For those sins for which men will be everlastingly punished will no doubt be made to manifest God's glory. Such is the force of the apostles' reply. Verse 7, "For if the truth of God hath more abounded through my lie unto his glory, why yet am I also judged as a sinner?" This verse is generally supposed to contain the objection here reiterated, which was before stated in the 5th verse. It would appear strange, however, that the apostle should in this manner repeat an objection, in a way, too, in which it is not strengthened, which he had effectually removed, and that, after proposing it a second time, he should add nothing to his preceding reply further than denouncing it. It is not then a repetition of the same objection, but a second way in which Paul replies to what had been advanced in the 5th verse. In the preceding verse, he had, in his usual brief but energetic first repudiated the consequence alleged in the 5th verse, and had next replied to it by a particular reference which proved that it was inadmissible. Here, by the word "for," he introduces another consideration and proceeds to set aside the objection by exposing the inconsistency of those by whom it was preferred. The expression in the Greek, "I," also shows that Paul here in his own person, and not in that of an opponent, for otherwise he would not have said "I also," which marks an application to a particular individual. His reply then here to the objection is this: if, according to those by whom it is supposed and brought forward, it would be unrighteous in God to punish any action which redounds to his own glory, Paul would in like manner say that if his lie, his false doctrine, as his adversaries stigmatized it, commended the truth of God, they, according to their own principle, were unjust, because on this account they persecuted him as a sinner. In this manner he makes their objection recoil upon those by whom it was advanced, and refutes them by referring to their own conduct towards him, so that they could have nothing to reply. For it could not be denied that the doctrine which Paul taught respecting the justification of sinners solely by the righteousness of God, whether true or false, ascribed all the glory of their salvation to God.